This is part 2 of the dad hating on Michael Jordan. Like I said, the only thing I hate more than a Jordan fanboy is a LeBron James fanboy, because they take it to extreme measures to say why they believe LeBron James is the greatest of all time. If they would just stick with the facts, maybe we could have a good debate. I could have a good debate with them, but LeBron James fanboys refuse to stick to the facts. And I'm going to tell you the facts. You know I am. I research everything before I post it on here. I'm not a LeBron James fanboy. Do I like watching LeBron James? Yeah, I love watching every great player, whether it's Kevin Durant, Jordan. I love watching Antetokounmpo. When Derrick Rose before the injuries, I love watching him. Dominique Wilkins, Shaq, Kobe. I'm a basketball fan. I love watching great players play. But don't lie to make somebody greater than what they are. Don't lie. But LeBron James fanboys lie. As much crap as I give Lamont J and the Jordan fanboys, they don't lie. They do have convenient amnesia, but they don't lie about Michael Jordan at all. They don't lie. The LeBron James fanboys are the worst. They lie. Why lie? Stick to the facts. But let me jump into this before I go crazy. Now, at the beginning, he actually, surprisingly, was telling the truth. Michael Jordan, at the beginning of his career, did get his butt kicked. He was 0-6 against the Boston Celtics and Larry Bird, and it took him 4 tries to get past the Detroit Pistons. And he did mention at the beginning that it was a team game, and Michael Jordan scored 63 points against the Boston Celtics and still lost, which is true. It is a team game, but he did contradict himself later on in the video. So, and this is where the lies kind of started. He was like, you played against a sorry Lakers team. A sorry Lakers team. That sorry Lakers team was 58-24. They were 13th in scoring and 2nd in opponents' points. That's a defensive stat which shows you you're holding teams to a low average of scoring. And they were 2nd in the league, and at the time it was 27 teams. And Magic Johnson, we always debate whether he was in his prime or not on Sports Fanatics. I don't know if he's in his prime, but it's the same thing with John Stockton. Towards the end of John Stockton's career, even though he wasn't in his prime, he was such a smart player, he could still be effective. So even if Magic Johnson wasn't in his prime in 91, he still was effective. In the series, and keep in mind, this is a series people say Scottie Pippen shut him down. He averaged 18.6 points per game, 8.0 rebounds per game, 12.4 assists per game, and 1.2 steals per game. That's pretty good for being considered that Scottie Pippen shut him down, and he still averaged all of that, what I said. Now, he did only shoot 43%, so you can put that on Scottie Pippen, say he held him to a low percentage shooting, because he didn't shoot 43% for his career, and he only shot 43% that series. Now, James Worthy sat out Game 5, and so did Byron Scott. So they didn't sit out the whole series like the LeBron James fanboys said. They sat out Game 5, not the whole series. You know, and James Worthy, when he played, he averaged 19.3 points per game and shot 47%. So he was still balling. Was he in his prime at that point, James Worthy? I wouldn't say that, but he could still hoop. He could still hoop. So I don't understand why he was making it sound like James Worthy and Byron Scott missed the entire series. They did not. Like, stop lying, bro. Stop lying. Why lie? What's the point of lying? Stick to the facts. Why lie? I like watching LeBron James too, but I'm not going to lie about anything he did. I'm not going to lie about the teams Jordan went up against to make him look greater. Why lie? Stick to the facts, bro. But anyway, Vlade Divac averaged 18.2 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game, and 2.4 blocks per game. Vlade Divac is no way an all-star, but those are great numbers for a series, which you did not mention. And the game was different back then. The game was more physical, so players didn't play as long as they play now. Like now, Vince Carter is 40 and he wants to play another year. Players back in those days were not playing that long, with the exception of Robert Parrish and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They did play for years and years, but a lot of players retired what would be considered early now in their career. But keep in mind, back in those days, players stayed in college longer and the NBA game was more physical. So, like I said, we debate back and forth whether Magic was in his prime or not. He might have been, and he might have been not. Like I said, it's hard to say. His numbers in the finals were still good. If he's not in his prime, those are still pretty solid numbers. And then the Blazers team, that Blazers team didn't have anybody except for Clyde Drexler. The Blazers team that you said didn't have anybody and was sorry, they were 57-25, which, once again, that's almost 60 wins. They're fourth in scoring. And they had Terry Porter, who's one of the most underrated guards in NBA history. Terry Porter could hoop. Cliff Robinson was a solid player. And obviously, Clyde Drexler was a superstar. And then they also had hard-nosed players like Buck Williams, who was a former All-Star, Jerome Kersey, and Kevin Duckworth. And keep in mind, Kevin Duckworth wasn't a superstar, but in the 80s and 90s, a lot of teams, including the Bulls, because they had Bill Cartwright, had a lot of those hard-nosed centers who knew what their job was. It wasn't the score, it was the rebound, block shots, and play hard defense. Like the era now where every center shoots threes, they weren't doing that in the 80s or 90s, bro. Stop fronting. And you said it's a team game, so obviously Clyde Drexler didn't get them to the finals by himself. He had the people I named, Terry Porter, Jerome Kersey, Cliff Robinson, Danny Ainge, all the people I named right there, all scored double figures in the 1992 finals. They all scored 10 points or more. So they weren't sorry. Mark Bryant even averaged double figures, but I don't count his because he only played in one game. As far as that Portland Trailblazer team of the 90s, in 89-90, they went 59-23, 91-92, 57-25, 92-93, 51-31, 93-94, 47-35. But in the 1990-91 season, that Portland team that you were saying sorry, the year before they made it to the finals against the Bulls, they were 63-19. And that's a sorry team, bro. They went 63-19 the year before they played the Bulls. And that's a sorry team, bro. Like, what are you smoking, bro? Like, what are you smoking? Like, don't smoke nothing before you post another video. Don't smoke nothing before you post another video, bro. Don't smoke anything. Don't drink, don't smoke. Dude, just stick to the facts, bro. Like, stop lying. Anyway, that Portland team was a great team. It was one of those teams that could not get over that hump. A lot of people say it's the Jordan curse because they didn't draft Jordan when they had a chance. They drafted Sam Bowie instead. Obviously, I never agree with people saying they should have drafted Jordan because they already had Clyde Drexler. I mean, if you're not going to trade Clyde Drexler, Drexler and Jordan can't play together. They're both ball-dominant players, and that just wouldn't have worked. But that's another debate, another story for another time. But they could have drafted Charles Barkley, or I think John Stockton was still around at that point. There are other players they could have drafted besides drafting Sam Bowie, who was already shown in college he could be injury-prone. But that, once again, that's another debate. Then you said the Phoenix Suns were sorry. Now, the Phoenix Suns were 62-20 that year. And it wasn't an easy trip for the Bulls back to the finals. That was a year Phoenix had home court in that series. A lot of people picked Phoenix to win that series. Phoenix was a team of destiny, they said, all year. The Bulls almost lost to the Knicks in a conference final, so it wasn't easy for the Bulls to get into the finals. I don't know why you're making it sound like it was. As far as KJ and Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson being scrubs, they weren't. Kevin Johnson, for his career, averaged 17.9 points per game, 9.1 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game. He shot 84% from the field, 30% from the three-point line, but as we all know, people weren't shooting threes like that back in that era. 3.3 rebounds per game. Dan Marley averaged 11.4 points per game, but in 92-93, he averaged 16.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 77 from the free throw line, 77%, and he was a 38% three-point shooter. And anybody who saw Dan Marley play that year knows he was hitting threes from everywhere. He's still, to this day, I consider him one of the best three-point shooters in NBA history. Obviously, that was Charles Barkley's MVP year, 25.6 points per game, 12.2 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists per game, 1.6 steals per game, 1.0 blocks per game, 76 from the free throw line, 52% from the field, and 30% from the three-point line. Charles was unbelievable that year. Now, getting back to KJ and him being sorry. Now, in the first two games of the finals, KG did struggle. He only had 11 in game one, 4 in game 2. But in game 3, he had 25, game 4, 19, game 5, 25, and the game they lost, game 6, he had 19. So for the series, so the thing is for KJ, he didn't suck. He was not sorry. Not to mention, if you go to most points in game 7 in NBA history, the most points anybody's ever scored in game 7, you got LeBron James up there twice, 45 this year, 45 in 2008. Sam Jones, 50 all-time great, 47. Dominique Wilkins, 47. And guess who else is up there? Kevin Johnson, 46 and 95. So he's up there with the most points in game 7s in NBA history, but yet he's sorry, bro. Like, I don't get you. Another guy people over time forgot who was really good for that Phoenix Suns team was a young guy named Richard Dumas. He averaged 15.8 points per game, 1.8 steals per game, 4.6 rebounds per game. In game 1, he had 20 points. Richard Dumas looked like he was one of those young players who could be a star one day in the NBA. He was super athletic, could play defense, could run. Unfortunately, he was getting caught up in drugs, and he got kicked out of the NBA, came back, messed with drugs again. They kicked him out forever. The next team you were talking about was the Seattle Supersonics. You said, except for Gary Payton, they didn't have anybody, which is stupid. I'm going to get to Gary Payton first. Gary Payton is a Hall of Fame player. 1996, he won Defensive Player of the Year, 9-time All-Defensive First Team, 5 times Second Team, 19.3 points per game, 2.9 steals per game, 7.5 assists per game, and 4.6 rebounds per game. That was his stats for 96. They also had another player named Detlef Schrempf, who was a solid NBA player. 17.1 points per game, 4.4 assists per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 40% from the three-point line, 77% from the free throw line, 3-time NBA All-Star, and he won the NBA Sixth Man of the Year twice. He played in the NBA 17 years. As far as their role players, they had Sam Perkins, solid three-point shooter back in the day when big men weren't shooting threes. Hersey Hawkins, a solid role player. Nate McMillan, who one of the best defensive players of all time. Frank Bukowski, another kind of, I'll say it, he was a dirty player, but he knew his role. He could step out and hit threes too. Once again, an era where big men weren't shooting threes. He could step out and make threes. Vincent Askew, another role player who was solid. They were 64 and 18 that year, which, once again, like another great NBA team who you said was sorry. I shouldn't even be saying this. They made it to the NBA Finals for a reason, so whatever, man. Defensive rating, they were second in the NBA. Offensive rating, they were 8th. Am I forgetting anybody? Oh, yeah. You know what? I did forget somebody. You know what? It's funny how you said, I watch everybody. I saw it. No, you didn't, dude. Like, no, you didn't see everybody. How could you not talk about Shawn Kemp? Like, what would possess you not to mention Shawn Kemp? But you said you saw everybody? Do you remember how raw Shawn Kemp was? Especially in 96, he was in his prime. Other than Karl Malone and Charles Barkley, he was like the 3rd best power forward in the NBA, and you somehow did not mention Shawn Kemp, the Rain Man? How dare you, bro? How dare you not mention Shawn Kemp? As if he was a nobody. Seriously? Now, Shawn Kemp that year averaged 19.6 points per game, 1.6 blocks per game, 1.2 steals per game, and 11.4 rebounds per game. Those numbers are great, bro. You need to stop smoking before you post anything. Now, another thing that's interesting about Seattle, you say they're sorry, right? The Cleveland Cavaliers that won the championship with Kyrie hitting the game-winning shot. Dude, that team would not be able to beat the Seattle Supersonics. All that dribbling Kyrie Irving was doing, if we're going by the 90s rules, Gary Payton will lock him up. There's no way they would be able to beat that Seattle Supersonics team. Who's going to guard Shawn Kemp, bro? Tristan Thompson? Kevin Love? He's going to be dunking all over those cats the whole game. What are you talking about, bro? And then even if Gary Payton gets in foul trouble, they got Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan was another great defensive point guard. They would lock up Kyrie Irving. He would not be doing all that fancy dribbling stuff against them. I mean, yeah, they're not going to stop LeBron, but You stop Kyrie and you shut down Kevin Love. That's it. LeBron's not going to win. You were the one who's saying it was a team game. So that's like, it was stupid to even say that because as soon as I thought, I'm thinking like, Kyrie Irving against Gary Payton, the glove? He's not going to do that, bro. He's not going to do that. Get out of here, bro. Stop it. Stop it. And the next team, now this is actually funny. The Utah Jazz, 96-97, 97-98. Old Malone and old Stockton. Malone was 33. Anybody who saw Karl Malone, he was in great shape his whole career. So even if he was old, bro, you're stupid because, yeah, you just saw it. John Stockton was 34. First of all, it was Karl Malone MVP season, which he averaged 27.4 points per game, 9.9 rebounds per game, 1.45 steals per game, and 4.5 assists per game. Now, for an old man, that's pretty good numbers. Like, Stockton averaged 4.4 points per game, 10.5 assists per game, 2.0 steals per game. He shot 42% from the three, 84 from the free throw line, excuse me. Once again, 64-18. Great record, great team. Don't know why you're hating. Well, I do know why you're hating because you're a LeBron James fanboy, but it's like, dude, you're either high or something's wrong with you mentally to say this was a weak team. Like, seriously. Their third best player was Jeff Hornacek, who averaged 14.5 points per game, 1.5 steals per game, 4.4 assists per game, shot 89% from the free throw line, 36 from the three-point line. And then they had a bunch of young players. Ostertag, who once again knew his role. His role wasn't a scorer. Role was a play defense, rebound, block shots. Like, every team's not going to have a dominant center. Shannon Anderson, nice young player. Howard Isley, who both of them couldn't play at all once they left Utah, but with Utah, they were great. Greg Foster, Brian Russell, another young player. Antoine Carr was a vet, another rugged rebounder, tough player. They were second in points per game in the NBA, ninth in defensive rating. The 97-98 Utah team, 62-20. Another great record, another great team. This was the year a lot of Bulls fans weren't even sure they could beat Utah. The series actually was in Utah. And let me give you another stat since you say Utah was such a weak team, bro. From 88, 89 to 2000, 2001 season, the Utah Jazz won 50 games 11 times. They were pretty much the Spurs without championships. They won 60 games in that span 3 times. So for you to say they're a sorry team, you either are smoking crack or you didn't watch basketball then. I don't care if you said you did. You clearly didn't because I don't understand how you didn't know Utah was a great team. All right, then you said Kobe Bryant. He's like, Kobe's not in the discussion. He's sorry. He's sorry. First of all, Kobe Bryant's a better clutch player than LeBron James. LeBron James will never be considered the clutch player Kobe Bryant was. So let's knock that out right away. I'm not going to even get to Jordan. It's obvious. Everybody knows Jordan's a better clutch player than LeBron James. Like, that's obvious. So that's not even in the discussion, first of all. Secondly, yeah, Kobe has Shaq, but didn't Shaq have Kobe? Shaq didn't win a championship with Penny Hardaway. He surely didn't win a championship with Cedric Ceballos and Eddie Jones and Nick Van Exel. He won 3 with Kobe. And it's kind of funny how you didn't mention Kobe Bryant won 2 more championships and won Finals MVP both of those times with Pau Gasol, and he was the go-to guy in that team. Because I'm not fronting. Shaq was the go-to guy in those Laker teams. But Kobe won 2 more championships as a go-to guy. You failed to mention that. And yeah, of course, Shaq did win another championship with Dwayne Wade, but that has nothing to do with this discussion. Also, then this is the part where I kind of lost my patience here. Well, let me give you Kobe's stats first, since you said he's sorry. Kobe is 3rd in points, 3rd in free throws made, 12th in points per game, playoffs 4th all-time in points, 5th all-time in field goals made. So that's pretty great for a sorry player, bro. Now, here's the part where I lost my patience, getting back to this, where you're just a liar. And I'm like, dude, like I'm not a YouTube person who believes everything you say. I actually go back and check. And this, I didn't even have to go back and check. I knew you were lying right away because I know the NBA history. I remember who people played the next year in the NBA Finals. You were like, the Lakers, y'all lost to Detroit. The very next year, LeBron beat that same Detroit. No, it wasn't the same Detroit team, bro. After Detroit won the championship in 2004, the next year they made it to the finals and lost to the Spurs. Why are you lying, brother? Don't lie. If you're going to stick to the facts, stick to the facts. Don't lie, bro. And it was, to make it even worse about that, the next year wasn't the year they played LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They played Miami and lost to Miami. So it was like 3 years later where they played that LeBron James-led Cleveland team. That was a 2006-2007 team. Not the next year, brother. And that team was a lot different. They were missing one important player. His name is Ben Wallace, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. He won the Defensive Player of the Year 4 times. 6 All-NBA defensive teams, and 1 second defensive team, 5-time All-NBA, 3-time second All-NBA, 2-time third team. He led the NBA in rebounds twice. He led the NBA in blocks in 2002. Only player in NBA history to record 1,000 blocks, 100 steals in 4 consecutive seasons. So, not having Ben Wallace is a big deal, especially since LeBron was going in a hoop. Ben Wallace would have been swatting dude, bro. So it's like you failed to mention they didn't have one of the greatest defensive players of all time on the team. And don't get me wrong, LeBron put on one of the greatest performances in NBA history. But to say it was the same team, you're lying. It wasn't the same team. Not only was it a few years after that, they didn't have Ben Wallace. So why are you fronting? The team that the Lakers lost to had Ben Wallace. And Ben Wallace did block Shaq a few times in that series. And he guarded Shaq one-on-one. Most centers in the NBA in that era did not guard Shaq one-on-one. But most teams didn't have Ben Wallace, who was a bad boy with his fro and everything. And then at one point, you said Michael Jackson instead of Michael Jordan. I'm like, dude, just stop talking. Stop drinking before you post stuff. Stop drinking. And then you said LeBron didn't have anybody, and he got that team to the final. I thought you said it was a team sport. So if it's a team sport, LeBron had somebody on his team. But what you should have said was LeBron didn't have another superstar on his team, which he didn't. I compared that Cleveland team that got to the finals and got swept by the Spurs. I compare that with the AI Philadelphia 76ers that went to the finals. They didn't have another superstar. They did have a defensive superstar in Dikembe Mutombo, but they didn't have another superstar that can score and do all that fancy stuff. Allen Iverson was the only player on that team. But Tyrone Hill, Mutombo, George Lynch, all of them played hard-nosed defense. They went after every rebound. They tried to block every shot. They were all great defenders. And if you look at, it's kind of funny because Eric Snow was on that Philly team, but he's also on the Cleveland team that went to the finals and got swept by the Spurs. But Eric Snow was a hard-nosed player, very agile, hard-nosed player, goes after every rebound. Drew Gooden, a hard-nosed player. Boobie Gibson was a great three-point shooter. If he's open, he would knock it down. Was he an all-star? No, but he can make open three-point shots, which you need when you play with LeBron James because you know he's going to get doubled. You know he's going to draw 2 or 3 defenders. Larry Hughes never fit in with that team. It was a bad signing. Larry Hughes played good with the Wizards because they were an up-and-down team. The Wizards were a West Coast team and the East Coast because they had 3 West Coast players. Gilbert Arenas, Antoine Jameson, and Larry Hughes all played together in Golden State. Then they rejoined with the Wizards. When Larry Hughes came to Cleveland, they were a slow team, give the ball to LeBron, he does a million dribbles. He never fit that system. Also, Cleveland had Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who I believe would have been a better center had he not had all the foot surgeries. But at that point, he was definitely slowing down, and he just wasn't the player he could have been had not been for the injuries. Another thing for that Cleveland team that you said didn't have anybody, they were 4th in defensive rating in the NBA. So clearly they had great defensive principles and great defensive players. And like I always tell people, you can score all the points you want in the NBA. If you don't play defense, you're not going to even get to the finals. So obviously they had somebody. So in closing, I kind of feel like next time you post something, just do research. Just research, bro. Like, because you sounded ignorant. Because you said you watch basketball, but then there were several things I just pointed out to you that you didn't know. For a person, I watch everybody. I watch everybody. No, you didn't. You're lying. You're lying or you're on drugs. Next time you post a video, do me a favor, bro. Paint your face white because you're a clown.